So let me tell you a story. Why League of Legends? As in, why do I play League of Legends? Why do I make content for League of Legends? Why haven't I jumped ship from League of Legends to another game like, let's say, Overwatch? Because other games cost money and I'm broke. And jumping takes effort and I'm too tired to do so. If you look up and read the definition of lazy in the dictionary, well then congratulations, you know how to read, which is more than some people know how to do in this world. So good job. League of Legends is an interesting game because I'm interested in what was going through the minds of developers when they released some of these broken hitboxes for certain skill shots. I think they and I have a misunderstanding about what skill is. See, they believe skill is an aimbot that's like a participation trophy. Thresh, you tried your hardest to throw this hook in lane, and you missed. You flat out missed. But you tried your best. So we're gonna gift you the enemy Jinx's life that she clearly actually dodged correctly because why not? That won't, not benefit everybody. Meanwhile, I believe skill is more something that I actually have, and is why everything is never my fault when 90% of the time it actually is Yasuo's fault for not being banned. Such a stupid ability Windwall is. I don't get how that ever made it off of testing. League of Legends as a game is probably the closest out of the esports to a physical sport. If someone decided to take their laptop to an NFL game and play it there, maybe. Otherwise, no. One is a video game, and the other is a game of how many times can I get hit in the head before a concussion. Kind of like Russian roulette, except it isn't Russian roulette, obviously. But unlike other shooters, League has swords too. Diversity is key in today's world after all. Furthermore, unlike shooters, League isn't set in the future, and then they keep making more games farther in the future despite the fact the community keeps saying they don't want that, and that's exactly what they don't want. Riot might never listen to its community, but at least it has not done that. They instead gave us Camille, so it isn't like it isn't a close second though. Never did I ever think I'd have such a disdain and hatred for a pair of scissors as I do now. Shooters, you see, have different roles, like which person is calling your mother everything out of her name except her actual name, and which person is calling you all different kinds of racial slurs that don't even apply to you, while asking their own mother for sandwiches. Now I wish this was a stereotype, but my mic only had one speaker, so it is mono, you fools. And while generally this commanded no attention, one thing did, and one thing does in shooter games. The kind of gun you are picking and playing with. Are you playing a sniper? Are you more of a machine gun person? Or maybe you're more a pistol? I personally favorite the rocket launcher. And I was constantly called a noob tuber whenever I landed my shots, which made no sense to me because that's kind of a name reserved for people who are bad at doing things, and obviously I wasn't. I was killing people. Sorry, learn to dodge a missile, noob. But despite each class being somewhat different, all of them are generally a shooter, which means you can change to something else if a situation calls for you to be a different class of shooter. Did the enemy call in an attack helicopter, for example? Well then maybe you die, respawn, come back as the rocket launcher guy to take that thing out. Or of course, you can keep trying to take it down with your pistol. Hey, dream big, or what's the point after all? League of Legends, meanwhile, for analogy's sake, is more like a Megazord. Kinda like how at the end of every season of Power Rangers, the Megazord gets destroyed, because that's about as much cooperation as my teams usually have. But to complete the analogy, for those that don't know what a Megazord is made up of 5 different Zords, and they come together to form a bigger, more powerful robot. If a part is missing, it cannot be swapped out. It's just at a disadvantage, like missing an arm or a leg. If you're missing, a leg, you maybe could take off an arm and put it in place of that leg, but now you're still missing an arm. Something is always gone, and that's kind of part of the problem. You have mid lane, which we'll say he's the torso and the head of the Megazord. You have the AD carry, which is kind of whatever arm has the weapon, whether it's a sword or a blaster of some type. And then you have the top laner, who is kind of like the second carry weapon, or he could be the shield if he's like a tank, tanking damage. The jungler and the support are kind of the legs holding everybody up. They can play very good supportive roles, but as legs, they can also kick people, in which case the analogy being they could be something a bit more offensive, a carry jungler, or like a damage mage support. True. See, this is why AFKs in this game are so frustrating and punished in League of Legends. If that jungler is missing, you might have damage and you might have defenses, but you might be lacking some stability and some support to hold you up, especially if you're against an enemy Megazord who then has everything you have, but they're also stable to fight you with. AFKs ruin a game of League for 9 people. Except it doesn't, because the enemy team is getting a free win, and despite maybe 1 or 2, oh hey, sorry for the AFK in all chat, they are literally not sitting there, I guarantee you, true story, they are not sitting there and actually going, man, I wish I did not have a free lane right now, because this Orianna is super bad, and luckily the enemy top AFK too. Man, this game is absolutely ruined for us. Each role has a specific job. And when someone is missing, a certain job cannot be met. If your tank is missing, you cannot tank the enemy damage threats and probably lack the CC to lock down enemy carries. If your mid is missing, you lack enough magic damage, potentially, to kill the enemy tank. And also, if your AD carry is missing, you probably lack enough physical damage to kill their tank. If your support is missing, you might be lacking peel against the enemy tank CC, and if your Lee Sin jungle is missing, you might be lacking an ego on your team. I do not fear death, only not flaming everyone else on both teams enough despite being 1-7 and insecting the enemy assassin on top of my own AD carry twice. Come on now, Jinx. Snare Zed with your choppers, you peasant. Is it victory if there is no challenge? I guess not, because man do they like to put us in a single-handed gold deficit every game. What is that champion? But that is part of why League of Legends can be addicting. The chance you might not have a Godfist Lee Sin in your game. Seriously, they made the embodiment of Lee Sin players' ego in skin form. It's a beautiful nightmare, honestly. But on top of that, because people do not have interchangeable roles. So that means that they focus on their role and can become good at it. I could become good at playing AD carry eventually, or I could eat pizza on a Friday night and watch Danganronpa streams. It's free will, it's OP. However, on a serious note, that is probably the appeal, besides, an empty wallet to be able to buy different games, is the chance that you can always improve and get better at whatever it is you're playing, at the champion you're playing, or at the game in general. Because the game is changing every 2 weeks with patches. Things can get shaken up and force you to get better at a matchup you thought you knew because a new champion comes in, or a new build comes in, or the new matchup against that new champion because that's, a champion in your role, someone gets reworked, or a buff or nerf happens to the champion you play. Now you gotta kind of relearn that champion to work around they're suddenly being more powerful or less powerful than you were. Or having to gain back the LP you lost because Riot decided to update the client mid-game right when your team was on the enemy nexus at half health. Gold 2 was in your grasp. You could feel the pride and the satisfaction of flaming the enemy Riven who flamed you first, so that makes it okay, washed away by the joy of victory, robbed from you. Misfortune and despair are some heck of a drugs, aren't they? Ultimately, that is why League of Legends. Other games can compare, except money-wise because League is free to play, but it's the role focus that sets League apart from, say, a shooter game. Ultimately, that doesn't mean shooter games and such can't be good or can't be good things to do a YouTube off of or make content off of, but League is kind of self-fulfilling in the fact that because it's always changing, and because depending how you play it, things can always be somewhat fresh and new, nothing can get too stale because of how the game operates, how the game works, how the different roles have to come together to be able to form something, and if someone's not on it or someone's missing, you might even lose over that. But that's kind of the appeal of playing it and even watching it, just watching TSM or whoever play against another team and then watching the fact that even if they play a best of 5, all 5 games aren't going to be the same. So that's the conclusion of this video. For those that don't know, this was a parody of Gbay99's video that he made under the same title. I will link it in the description down below. But feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching this video, and I don't know which video will be next, because life can be quite a mess. So until next time, take care, from the Fire Guy, FS.